Are you through the first quarter of the year and you haven't set any goals yet? Or maybe you have, but you're falling off pace a little bit. In this video, I'm going to talk about how our goal setting as a company took us from a failing, losing money company to having our first profitable year in 2024 and looking even better into 2025. So first, to be intentional with our time, I'm going to take you all through three different portions. What we did at the very beginning when we were setting goals, what we do right now, and some of the adjustments I'm making into the future as I'm learning some of these lessons on how important goal setting and having a vision ahead actually is. So to start, back in 2022, this is when we first implemented goal setting. There was a professor I had at Stetson, and that's where I went to school, Stetson University, that had us read Traction. It's a book by Gino Wickman, and it was one of the school assignments. We had to write a little report on it. And I remember reading that book, and I was like, this is crazy. It's basically an all-in-one solution on how to run your company. You had the data, you had the people, you had the structure, a vision ahead, and there's all these things. And so I got super excited. I was like, okay, this is great. We're going to go and we're going to implement into the business. And so we finished the book, and immediately I take this Traction book back to our admin team. We had 5 people, myself included, at the time. I'm like, hey, guys, we're going to read this. We're going to run our company like this, and it's going to be great. I promise you. And so before I get even further into what the Traction book is, just for context for everybody listening, there's this thing in Traction called the VTO, or the Vision Traction Organizer. And the purpose of it is basically, if you have a long-term goal and you're not really sure direction, it's kind of taking the 10-year goal and bringing it back down to reality. Like, what is the perfect world solution of what you're trying to build? And you bring it back down to the present day. So there's 7 things on this list I'll run through quickly of what that VTO has. So you have the core values is the first component. So setting out, what is the most important things to you? How are you going to hire? How are you going to fire? How are you going to onboard customers? Do you have certain values? Like a couple of ours, for example, the to-do dudes are growth mindset, community, accountability. Those are really foundational pieces of our company. So trying to draft that for yourself. Second one is the core focus. So what your passion as a business is, and then your niche, like what is the unique customer that you're serving. The third is a marketing plan. So a target market, you have 3 uniques. So 3 things that set yourself up differently than any other company. Your proven process, how you get basically from the beginning of a customer reaching out all the way to fulfillment. And then finally, a guarantee. So customers have the peace of mind. If you make a mistake, then you're going to compensate them either with some sort of discount, money back, they don't pay, etc., something like that. Then furthermore, you have the 10-year vision, the 3-year vision, a 1-year vision, and then an issues list, which is really important. So those are the things that are problems with the organization currently. So that's kind of the definition of what a VTO is. But I'm going to save you about 16 hours and give it to you in about 1 minute as for what our first VTO planning looked like. This is really funny. So we were all excited. We read this book and we're like, okay, so now we need to have this meeting to get this set in place. And one of the things it talks about in Traction is you want to have a 2-day same page meeting. This is an annual thing that you'll have. And so we planned, I think it was a Saturday and Sunday, and we had our admin team come, and we were going to set our vision. What does this look like ahead? What are our core values? What are the things important to us? What do we want to do in 10 years? And I remember that first day, and we did planning for it, but we really had it was really to the best of our ability. We had no real idea on being only 2 years in business at that point, like maybe 1.5. Like, what could we do in 10 years? What does that actually look like? So we basically threw spaghetti at a wall and said, this sounds good enough. So I'm going to give you some of those first goals. There's 4 goals on here that we set, and 3 of them were atrocious. One of them was actually not bad. And then I'm going to talk about how many goals of the ones we had originally set actually were completed. So the first one was 3 official B2B relationships created. That was one of the first goals we set for. You take basically that VTO and you have a yearly breakdown, and then you bring it down to a quarterly breakdown. So it was a lot bigger. The yearly goal was to connect a lot more businesses, but we had that quarterly goal of 3 B2B relationships. And so just think about that for a second. 3 B2B relationships created. Does that mean going to see them and give them business cards? Does that mean working for them? Does that mean have a document that they have to sign? Very unclear. And that's pretty much the trend that you're going to see with these other ones. And the second one, number 2, and this is even worse than that one, improve work environment for the field team. That's all it said. Improve work environment for the field team. And there's a problem here. So we get 2 months down the road out of a three months and a quarter, we look back and we're like, what did this actually mean? And we just all kind of look at each other and like, we don't know. We don't know what actually a victory looks like. So very gray. That's the thing I'll highlight there. Very gray. It wasn't clear what the definition of done was. Third one was actually not bad that I found in there. It was 150 new customers. So very clear, actionable. You know what basically a win or a loss looks like. The problem was we didn't know how to get customers. So that was kind of funny, but still very clear. And then the final one, this was one that really didn't move the organization forward, but still it was clear on what the action was, but it wasn't necessarily correlated with growth of what the main things we should be focusing on were. And it was read 2 books as an admin team in that quarter. I'm a huge advocate of reading, learning, growing as a team. I mean, even like furthermore, as a team is even better where we're absorbing the same content. But these are basically like the things that you're deciding. Each person has about 2 to 4 rocks, like core focuses. And I remember this was mine. I was ensuring that the team was able to read. And I'm just looking back, I'm like, what? That wasn't correlated with any sort of growth. Like we're getting better as people, and I mean, you can make the argument. I suppose my judgment is subjective, but there's so many other things that we could have been doing. That's like, these are the actual things that are moving the company forward. So it's just kind of funny to look back at. The first quarter, 7 out of 22 goals were completed. And there was like one that was just like a more of a feel good one that we're like, yeah, I think good enough. And we checked it off. So I mean, obviously we're not starting off very well. We're not swinging with a really high batting average at the time. And then there's 2 things I'm going to highlight. So coming back to that first point we had, and this is how we approached. I think this is important because it gives a little bit more depth of how we tried to at the beginning solve for some of these rocks, solve for some of the problems that we were trying to run after. That first rock was 3 businesses that we wanted to have relationships with. And we didn't really know how to do that. And we wanted to get connected. We thought there would be a value there. But basically we go out and find a gym, a local gym, a business owner that's only been in business for a few years. It's a little similar spot. There were a few more years in business than we were. And we made a deal. And how we did this is we actually drafted up a contract and we said, we are going to give you percentage discounts whenever you use us. And then our team members, as a benefit as being part of our company, are going to get a gym discount when they subscribe to your gym. And it sounds great. Great business owner. Really love the guy, but it wasn't something that was moving the business really that far forward. We spent so much time on this and was like, we need to be going out and like getting customers and not worrying about the kind of side stuff. So interesting thing at the start that we did. And look back on it, we haven't done anything like that since, but we actually did formally put a document together and made it very clear, like, hey, these are the criteria. This is what we're going to abide by. It was like a 6-month contract, and then we just kind of let it go. But almost at that point, that's not what we should have been focusing on looking back. The second thing that I look back on and those initial goals and how they impact our organization is there's a story with our director of marketing, and probably, I think this was maybe end of 2022. So we are working on the rocks for a little bit. And I remember, and this is not one of the goals I mentioned, but there's a goal that I had her work on, and it was develop a marketing strategy. And she's an absolute hustler. Like, she's a really hard worker, and she's like, okay, I'm going to take this, I'm going to go and do it. And it became the biggest, most frustrating task for both of us. Like, there was a lot of things back and forth where I was trying to delegate. She was confused on direction. And I look back and I'm like completely, this is completely my fault, my responsibility. I say, hey, this is what needs to happen. And broad terms, develop us a marketing plan to get us more customers. And at the time, it's like, we didn't have the experience. We didn't even know our business model enough. And it was completely, as the owner, at the beginning, I should be understanding and going deeper and then being able to clarify what I actually mean. This could have been a 1-page write-up and a 2-day, 3-day, 4-day endeavor that she embarked on. And I just wasn't clear enough. And I didn't even know. I was just like, just go figure it out and do it and then come back. And so the learning lesson for all of that at the very beginning is, if you don't provide clear black and white goals, it's not going to be hit. It may feel good, like, okay, we need to work on this part of our business, but especially as a leader, there has to be a clear direction for your team, or they're not going to know what to do. They can't read your mind. So you have to give them the tools and you have to give them clear expectations. This is what I'm looking for. This is how you know that you won. And we didn't do that at the beginning. And as our final reflection for 2022, and this is why I look back and I'm not frustrated at how we started, because you simply have to start. We didn't know how to do this because it was our first time ever embarking on goal setting. We're trying it, we're making progress. And so one of the biggest things that I think I've been reinforced on all these mistakes leading up to today is you have to do something with a ton of quantity before it becomes quality. And then once you get better at the quality, then you can make the quality better, continue to make that better. But it starts out with just pure quantity because you have to do it 100 times, or in this case, a lot less, but you have to do it more times before you actually get good at what does proper goal setting look like. Now, as we move into part number 2 of the video, like what we are doing today. And so up to this point, we've had 8 quarters that we've planned. So 2 annual reviews, 8 quarters. And we just set our 2025 planned and beyond. We reset some of our vision for the future. It's been a little bit clear, which is great. And I think this year is going to be different from the previous 2, but I know that there's still absolutely some learning. So first to talk about today, and I'm going to just touch on why goal setting is actually so important. Something that I've learned in the past 2 years that was just, it kind of revealed to me in October. And this is not part of our quarter rocks, but I think this is just a good illustration of why goal setting is very impactful for what you're trying to do. There was this networking event that I went to in Jacksonville, and it brought business owners from this networking group called BNI, which I'm a part of our local chapter in BNI. And all of these, it was like the end of year group meeting where you had maybe 1,000 people in the room. And I could tell there's a lot of people in that room that were, timid. There were people from all across Florida in this one room. And you had some people that were hustling networking, some people that were kind of timid, I'm kind of on their heels a little bit. And so I just was like, well, I kind of want to make today intentional. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a goal to get 100 business cards today. I'm going to go walk around, just meet people and say, hey, my goal is to get 100 business cards by the end of today. And so what it did for me is it gave me a very clear direction. That's the biggest thing. It gave me a clear direction on where I'm trying to go. And so when I'm meeting people, I'm walking around, I'm meeting people with the intention, I'm going to get the business card and I can see the vision ahead. If I would not have done that, and this is just it's a silly small example, but I think it is important to highlight. If I would not have done that, I probably would have been a lot more on my heels. I would have been like, okay, well, maybe I'll go meet this person or this person. My goal is just purely, I want to hit 100 people today. I didn't get close. I thought I'd have way more time. I didn't get close, but my energy in my directed efforts got me a lot further than what I would have done if I would not have made that goal. I went up to people that I across the room, just walked up to them and said, hey, my goal today is to meet 100 people, get 100 business cards. Tell me about what you do. Very intentional. I had a clear direction. I think I got to 30, somewhere in the 30s, 30, 39. So way short of the goal. I was over ambitious, but still the big thing to focus on there, to emphasize, is I was intentional with the actual goal. As you look at the present day for our company, the biggest things that have changed from 2022 to 2024 is the planning sessions. And at the beginning, you had just the nice to haves, the throwing spaghetti at a wall. And with data over time and us better understanding how clear and specific we need to be, now we actually can put clear definition of this is what we are trying to accomplish and we're going to hit it, rather than looking at that long-term 10-year goal and saying, I think we can be in 200 college towns, or I think we can do $100 million in revenue, simply having no idea. Now that we've seen the consistent revenue growth and then the consistent goal hitting, what we can actually set as goals, what actually helps the organization move forward. Now it's a lot clearer on what we can actually accomplish within a quarter, within a year. And so I'm going to highlight 3 examples of how we structured goals in even just 2023 versus 24. So I pulled 3 examples from both in the 2023 year and then also the 24 year. So in 23, you had document and automate marketing process. Document and automate marketing process. Vague. It can mean a lot of things. You'd probably have to give a lot more clarity there. An adjustment in the marketing department on that goal was you go from document and automate the marketing process to 50 ad creatives produced and published. Clear number, the ads produced and published. It's black and white. Our director of marketing knows if she won or lost, if that is hit. Second one is build field team resources to be up to date. I mean, what does that really mean? And so we adjusted this to say 10 onboarding videos created and published on YouTube. A lot more specific. Made it a lot easier for our ops manager to know this is how you actually win. And the third one is improving work environment for the field team. This is one I touched on the very beginning. And that switch to hosting 6 team events. So again, a lot clearer. You know how you win. It's not a subjective. It shouldn't be subjective. Then it just creates confusion, frustration, so many other things. And as a leader, you have to be specific. If you have a goal in mind, it takes precision of thought and detail to be able to pass it on to the team. So then they feel like, okay, I can grab this. I understand it. I know the action I need to take. So ultimately, there are 2 big takeaways I'm having from 24 to 25. The first one is goal specificity, getting clearer, more action oriented with our goals. And the second one is a commitment to follow through. When we say we're going to do something, we are going to get it done. And I look back actually in my journal in May of this past year, so in 2024, and there was 2 mini quotes that I wrote. And one of them was, the goal is the process, the outcome is the bonus. And then focusing on goals that are not the outcome, but instead framing the work and activities as the goal. I think looking back and on this first point of goal specificity, going back to the beginning when we were in 2022, a lot of them were outcome oriented. You even heard that third one, which was good. It was specific, 150 new customers, but is the outcome, not the input. So not spending the time doing the input to actually get there. And something I'm still learning right now. I can't say 100% confidently in either way, but what we've learned so far is in these past few years is the action oriented goals have gotten us closer to the actual end outcome we're looking for. The end outcome is that's the bonus. That's great. But if we magically hit that number and we didn't do any action, that could just be luck of the draw, where the action is we're actually doing things to get closer to that end goal. So that's going to be the first biggest change. And then on the second one is commitment to follow through. So multiple times what happened in previous quarters is we would start a quarter and then we'd change direction. So we'd be like, okay, this is a priority. And we get midway through and there'd be an issue that'd come up. There'd be a last minute project or something, some emergency. And we completely forget about the rocks and we're like, it's just not important anymore. As a new business, I think that's destined to happen in some cases, but I think we've done it too much so. And so one of the refinements we're going to be making is when we set a goal, we stick by it and we get it done with the quarter. If we realize at the end of the quarter, when we've put our effort into it, it's not important anymore, then throw it out. But mid-quarter, don't be changing around the responsibilities, because we start a project, then we shift, and we're really, at the end of the day, not getting anything done. So one interesting little add-on that I'll have going into 25 of what I did for my personal life is I actually set a VTO on basically my life to see if I could replicate the traction model for personal goals that I do have. And so what I did is I set personal core values. So just an example, one of them is intentionality, and I have 4 other ones that I set: a 10-year, a 3-year, 1-year, and even quarter rock. So I broke it down all the way, very similar process. And I'll keep you guys updated. Later in the year, I'll have a report on how this ended up going. But I modeled it the same way. And I actually have a template that I created for this. So basically having this Excel sheet that I created, it has a year breakdown, and then it has the 4 quarters. So quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. And it's all coded with really cool color coordination on Excel. So I'm going to put that in the template in the notes. So ultimately, what is the point of all this? I'm going to start with a proverb in the Bible that says, without a vision, the people will perish. And I think one of the biggest things I've taken away in the past few years is when we don't have clarity in where we're going, we're not going to get there. And a lot of times the question I typically ask myself is, if I don't know if the action I'm taking is going to be perfectly aligned with my long-term vision, can I at least assess, does it get me closer or further away from my goal? Is it simply directionally correct? And if it is, then I can press on, and things are going to change. We live in a world, it's ever changing, ever evolving. It's going to happen, but at least if we can go closer in that direction, we can make progress towards those goals. So if this was helpful, if you could share this with an entrepreneur or even an aspiring entrepreneur, that would mean the world. Give us a rating on your podcast streaming platform. And with that said, hope you'll go out there and crush the day.